Hello everyone and welcome back to another Backlog Banter video. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today I'm joined by my rotund pachyderm of a co-host, Abram Buhner, and today we're here to talk about a little prop comedy. Hi, you can't fucking do this, you don't have a physical copy. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The game is out and we have a lot to say about this because this is a monumentous occasion, I would say, history making. All those myriad things. Abram, you have played through this game. I believe you 100%ed. Did you do that last level and everything?
Yeah, the only thing I haven't done is I haven't gotten all the standees, but in my opinion, I 100%ed the game.
Yeah, sure. But if you played this game, join us in the comments and join us in our Discord, which is in the description, and join us by subscribing. It's YouTube. We don't. Why do we say this stuff anymore? It should be implied. Abram, talk to me about Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
Well, the other thing, Tucker, just as we're getting into our thoughts, also this is hurting my head, so I've taken it off.
Was it designed for a child? Is it like constricting your brain?
I mean, I have had that hat since I was probably 7, so.
Okay. Well, it still fits you relatively well.
Yeah, I mean, I've just always been very smart. I've always had a very large
It went on without a struggle.
People don't comment or like the video or subscribe anyway.
God,
so what's the fucking point, right? So how would you prove us wrong, right? And speaking of being proven wrong, I think that the larger Nintendo community, Tucker, was proven pretty wrong by Super Mario Bros. Wonder, because the prevailing sentiment for an extremely long period of time was that we would never get this game.
Sure, yeah.
And by this game, I don't particularly mean Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I simply mean a Mario game that returns to the forefront of the 2D series, a sense of creativity and variety and innovation that the new Super Mario Bros. Games that have been not only dominant but omnipresent for our entire lives, essentially.
It's true.
Yeah,
new 2D Mario game without Maker in it released from the time that we were born till this game came out.
Except for Super Mario Run, which is a good game.
That's a great fucking point. My bad.
But Tucker, this is all preamble to the fact that I think that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is an extraordinary game. It is, to sort of rattle off the accolades, for me personally.
Okay.
It is.
I didn't know if you had IGN score and GameSpot score in your mind somewhere.
It is my favorite Mario platformer on Seed Galaxy. It is my favorite game on Nintendo Switch. It is one of the only games in my entire life that I've ever gone out of my way to do every single thing in.
Sure, except the Sandies.
Again, except for getting on the Sandies, which shouldn't even be a 100% requirement.
No.
And it is, to me, this monument to not only Nintendo creativity, but sort of, at risk of sounding like a fanboy, to me, a reaffirmation of what AAA game dev at the absolute highest level should be. And I use that in very loose terms to not be too prescriptive, but the fact that Nintendo gave this team no time limit, no budget ceiling, and just said, innovate. Generate thousands of ideas and then pare those down to the absolute best 10 to 12 hours of them and be done when you're done. Is a sort of freedom that very few in the entire medium are allowed, and this is the kind of game you get when you're given that sort of room to play with, because I really think that this is exceptional and one of the greatest games I've ever played. And as I said in my backlog review, for my taste, this is about as good as games get. I can't believe Mario Wonder exists.
I am so happy that this resonated with you so deeply. One of your favorite games of all time, Unseating Galaxy, which is a game that your nuts quake when you simply hear the name of. But I agree wholeheartedly with all of that. I think it's not what AAA game dev should be, but it's the idealized version of that. And it actually makes me think of the situation that this game was developed in, I think, is a direct response to the success of the Switch and how little risk Nintendo has now. Is when they're selling 1 billion copies of everything, and they're not like, oh god, in order to get the console to sell, we need a 2D Mario game. Make a 2D Mario game now. Then you get waiting until the end of the generation, as opposed to 1 or 2 years into the generation where you get that 2D Mario game and it doesn't have the years to stew and stupefy and bubble up until you get this. And one of the wonders, bubbles up. So, hey, there you go. But I also found this game to be incredibly remarkable because I would say jaded with 2D Mario, but I don't think I care enough to be jaded by 2D Mario.
You're dispassionate, really, ultimately.
Dispassionate. But I found passion here in a way that I have personally found difficult to ascertain out of the other 2D Mario games. While I think they're varying degrees of good, but almost all good games, this game spoke to me on a creativity and variety level, an innovation level, that I have always felt was lacking out of most straight up 2D platformers, a genre that I play a lot of but don't love. And Mario Wonder completely flips that on its head for me, where I felt a sense of purpose playing through this game. Whether it is the fact that the coins and the purple coins have a little more meaning because they can buy things at shops, which just gives me a little more incentive to want to explore and collect things. Or the fact that every level feels so distinct because there are so many ideas that there isn't the levels running together element that I felt out of a lot of other 2D Mario games. Or the fact that you simply throw in an idea like Wonder that's never been done before, that stands it apart from everything else that's come before, that really makes this feel like what I imagine people felt like playing Super Mario Bros. When it came out on NES. Like, I can't believe this is possible. Wow, look at the creativity, look at the whimsy. But I think it was something that Tezuka and a couple of the other devs on this game were saying is a lot of the elements that were so creative and wondrous and ridiculous in those early NES, SNES Mario games, those have become the norm, and they have lost that spark. And for me, they basically never had that spark. I never watched Mario eat a mushroom or stomp on a Goomba and be like, whoa, that's so creative. Because it just was what Mario was. And now when you're introducing elephant power-up and talking flowers and wiggling pipes, that to me is that next step. And it feels... It makes me feel a lot closer to 2D Mario. And the love that other people have had for it for so long that I have never been able to resonate with until my shiny little baby boy here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if we can rewind to like literally 15 or more years ago or whatever, when I played Super Mario Brothers New Super Mario Brothers, the first one on DS, a game that is in the middle of its own kind of renaissance right now, as people are fighting to, I think, rightfully illustrate how it is quite different from the New Super Mario Brothers games that came after it. Right? That game, I think in history we'll see, deserves a lot of credit for how it did a lot to reinvent Mario in particular ways. Yeah. And it was a game that was, to me, very, very personally important. And it's a game that made me fall in love with Nintendo. It's a game I used to kind of pass my DS off to my dad to play some of the castle levels I couldn't beat, and vice versa. I really do love that game. But I think you're right in that what you're saying for you in terms of it's not special seeing Mario get the power up. It's not special hitting the top of the flagpole and various things. I think for me, because New Super Mario Brothers is a very important game to me, that there is an inherent special sort of personal spark there.
Sure, absolutely.
But what I think Mario Wonder does is it spools that spark up and presents it to me quite differently.
You say it charges up the spark.
It charges up the spark. Yeah. That's probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
I think what this game does so smartly is it really does look beyond itself and 2D Mario as a lineage. I think there's actually a lot more 3D Mario in this game than even 2D in some ways. I also think that there's I think that Galaxy is a very obvious and heavy inspiration on Wonder.
Galaxy and Odyssey might be the two biggest influences on this game.
And I think that this is probably a good place to start, because if you can look at New Super Mario Brothers DS as sort of taking the Mario 2, 3, and World and aggregating and remixing and pushing forward. Mario Wonder is taking those games as a starting point, but infusing a lot. And I don't think there's really been an infusion of outside influence, even just from the wider Mario universe into 2D Mario in a very, very long time. No, but I also think
especially not with the new Soup games that take no inspiration other than the inclusion of Bowser Jr.
There's as our friend Brendan was noting, the world map is in some ways kind of Dark Souls-esque, which is definitely a little bit of in some ways a reach, but I think it's also an indication to his point of how there's a lot of status quo upheaval here.
Absolutely. That's what I really want to focus on in this review.
Yeah. And I think that's really what we ought to bore into, and
Sure.
The wonder ability is an interesting sort of lens to do that through, because as somebody was saying on Twitter, like, if a third of the levels in the game had a wonder flower power, people would be amazed. But every single level has one. And there's a couple repeated wonders, but it's
never more than 2 to 3 times.
No, it's not really important that they are, because the sense of variety they offer is really quite incredible.
Yeah.
And the recontextualization of the level, sort of thinking about designing a space that operates in one way but just as seamlessly operates in a totally different, it goes back to what I was saying before about how this game is really a beautiful example of AAA design. So what are some of your favorite wonders?
Ooh,
as we're getting into it?
I think the ones that surprised me most were the ones that were transformations into characters / enemies / level elements that I didn't know existed and largely weren't part of Mario beforehand. One that really sticks out to me is you become like this cloudy, squishy accordion thing, and you can jump up super high, or the one where you turn into the Hoppy Cat. And that one also, you're jumping super high, or the one where you turn into a little goo guy and you can squeeze through cracks. It's like, these are ideas not only that we hadn't seen in Mario before in terms of what a power-up lets you do, because it changes the way that you're like your weight and your momentum carries in all of these different all of those different quote-unquote power-ups that are through the Wonder Seed or the Wonder Flower. But they feel like taking ideas from other platforming games and just putting them into Mario for a couple of seconds. The one that really sticks out to me is Mutant Blob's Attack, which is the first game by Drinkbox, the Guacamelee studio. That is a game I played earlier this year, where you play as a little gooey green guy with one eyeball, and you have the ability to squeeze through cracks because you don't have a fucking skeleton or whatever. So you can goopily squeeze through tubes and stuff. And I'm like, someone at Nintendo might have played that game, because when you're playing as a little red goo guy, that's exactly what they ported over to Mario Wonder, and it makes those stages feel distinct in terms of how they're designed, how you're approaching the level, what you can do as that specific version of Mario. And it really is refreshing to see Mario, the 2D Mario games, allow themselves to take inspiration from elsewhere. And I think that's what you were talking about, even outside of Mario. The fact that, as we'll break down one by one, the fact that online is being reinvented, taking inspiration from other games. The fact that progression and the badge system are taking elements from other games. But the wonders, I think there are less of them that do that as explicitly as I was saying Mutant Blob's Attack. But the fact that they're willing to do that is really, really exciting, and always keeps this game fresh.
Yeah, I mean the transformation ones are definitely some of the clearest highlights.
Yeah. I've got a couple more though. I'll get them after you say something. I just remembered more.
I mean, of the transformation ones, I love the one that turns you into and we see this in one of the early trailers, into the big red ball.
Yeah, that's fun.
And it makes what sounds like the Wii Sports strike noise.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
When you knock over various hazards. I think that one's a lot of fun. And those transformations have this sort of, and the whole game has this sort of Wario Land 4, like, shake it quality about it also, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But in a way that I think is a little bit more seamless, because you play, especially Wario Land 4, and you get a transformation, and you sort of have the cadence of the level really busted, in my opinion. And Wonder does that too, because Wonder is all about sort of on a dime, like gear shifting and making you consider the level differently. Yeah. But there's always a sort of contiguous sense of flow, which I really like. There's no turning into Zombie Wario analog and having to like plod along pointlessly. Yeah. There's a real sense of forward momentum to the transformation, which is really great. But there's also some that really bring the pace down that I really enjoy.
Yeah, sure.
My favorite in the entire game, again, just because I'm very Galaxy pilled, but also because seeing big Elephant Mario do this is fun. It's the cosmic
Sure.
one.
Yeah. Low gravity.
Low gravity. I believe that's on the Hoppo level from the first world.
Okay.
And it's just it's really a testament to, again, the use of space, because to access that, when you basically hop on a Hoppo, instead of going right to the flagpole, you go vertically up.
Sure.
And it completely recontextualizes what you sort of think of the confines of the level.
Yeah.
And then obviously pays homage to the P balloon from World and the aesthetics of Galaxy. So there's this very smart, like, series-wide celebration, a lot of the wonders. But again, always through this very, very new and fresh lens. And I feel like I can't belabor the point enough that being able to so flexibly recontextualize your levels in this way is not something that people are typically able to design for, because it's so impossible to consider. The giant hoppy cats is another great example.
That's one of the ones I was going to get to. I think that one, and also the one that's like the sort of like snapping flounder ones that kind of ends up being similar, but it's an underwater level. Yeah. The fact that the giant versions of these enemies are destroying the level around you, and not only are they giant, so you have to avoid them in like a larger area of effect, but also the fact that they are creating new paths for you and altering the level as you go in a way that you have never experienced in a Mario game before. Like, a giant chunk of the level being removed by a giant enemy is so different from the ways that enemies were even possible to interact with levels in previous games. And those were the ones that jumped out at me as like, whoa, they're really trying something totally different here. Not just a transformation, not just a different power-up, but something that's really changing the way that the level is evolving around you. I found to be very, very engaging.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach to environmental storytelling in some ways.
Okay, sure,
because you think about like Tropical Freeze, which people largely consider the high water mark for Nintendo platformers, and I used to before Wonder superseded it for me. But the environmental storytelling there is obviously a lot more apparent, just in terms of looking at a level, seeing the way it progresses, and seeing this sense of, the platforms all have a place, and the world extends into the background, and it's very clear that these critters live here. I think it's a very different but still quite masterful sense of storytelling to have these big enemies start breaking paths and opening up these emergent feeling moments. I think that is its own sense of really effective storytelling. I also, through that lens, have to shout out the incredible musical numbers in the Wonders.
Oh my god, yeah.
And obviously the Singing Piranha Plants is the one that gets sort of the most attention, and probably because it's one of the most joyful. Yeah. But I think my favorite...
Also because it was just the most surprising, to be honest. Like, the fact that we got that in level 2, I was sitting there just like, what? These guys are crazy. Like, the fact that... Because it's not even, like, particularly engaging from a gameplay perspective, so it's pretty risky to put that as the second... The gimmick of the second level, but it just brings a smile to your face in a way that shows that the developers really cared about the player experience. Like, they were like, this is maybe not the greatest in terms of us introducing something new gameplay wise, but it's going to be fun, and it's going to put you in the mindset of anything can happen, even if it's not like super engaging from the gameplay level, and we'll always try to put a smile on your face.
Yeah, this is a very 3D Mario type philosophy, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you think about the number of moon challenges in Odyssey, or the number of small shine challenges in Sunshine, that are not particularly mechanically complicated, but are ultimately just about feel and fun. And there's a lot of moments like that in Wonder. My favorite is... I think it's called Switchlight Mansion, but it's the King Boo number.
Who ends up chasing you and singing. He's like, oh.
That one's my favorite because...
But also, of course, the singing stops when you turn around and look at him because he's a boo. Very, very clever. Very cute, Nintendo.
It is very, very cute. And I just love the way King Boo is depicted here when you turn around and he's got that little, like... It's almost like that, like, beak... little face. I really love that. And that speaks not only to what we're talking about here, about this prioritization of fun, but also an eye for detail and animation.
Sure.
The animation in this game is second to none. Yeah, and there have been countless comparisons between New Super Mario Bros. U and this, of Mario going down a pipe, coming out of a pipe, obviously, and in as though he's being put into like a Play-Doh machine in Mario U. He just in the pipe, out the pipe.
Yeah.
Here he's going into the pipe. He's missing his cap. He's grabbing his cap, arm popping out. His little feet are wiggling.
Oh my god, I love that animation as you're coming out of a pipe that's hanging, and Mario's feet go whoa because he doesn't have anything to stand on, so scrambles for a second before he drops. That's really, really cute.
And I think that's another part of why this game is so exceptional to me.
Yeah,
because it's interesting in that the landscapes here are no more natural or any less artificial than they were in New Super Mario Brothers games.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's still floating blocks. It's still sort of irregular geometry. It's still platforms on little tracks to jump along.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that everything is rendered in such closer detail,
sure,
everybody moves so much more fluidly.
Yeah.
There is a sense of place here, even though the place doesn't make logical sense the way that Delfino Plaza makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a world that basically is here just to service like an emotion, and that emotion is fun or thrill or whatever it is. So
I can think of another word that might apply, but.
And I think that's in some ways even harder to cultivate. The sense that the world doesn't make logical sense on its face, but everything is rendered so beautifully, and it's all channeling a feeling opposed to like a concrete location is very, very interesting. And again, to me, it's just an example of how high of a level they're punching at in this game.
Yeah, it's just simple tweaks that make these levels and level aesthetics more creative and interesting to me personally. I think the best examples come from the first few levels, the pedal aisles, and there's like this sort of mountain area up in the top right corner of the map. And those three areas are interesting to me because they take relatively common level gimmicks. We've seen the island/oceany area in Mario games before, and we've seen the cliffy areas in Mario games before. But just by simply putting a different color palette on them and by adding a couple of elements of level geometry, the one that's jumping out to me specific is that I think it's World 4, the cliff area is filled with like yellow diamonds, like yellow geometry in the background that just makes it feel like what the hell is this? Like I've seen Mario climb up a cliff, but never a cliff that's yellow and gray that has yellow diamonds everywhere. It's very interesting. Or my favorite being those first few opening levels in the first area that have rolling hills of green, blue, and pink. Green, blue, and pink being a really satisfying color palette, but one that blue as a ostensibly grass texture and pink as a grass texture are not things that are almost ever done in games. And just by simply adding those elements to the background and the foreground, it makes it feel like you're in a different kind of place. And setting this in the Flower Kingdom as opposed to the Mushroom Kingdom allows for a host of different visually feeling things. And as I certainly want to get to, it also allows for a lot of enemy variety, which I think might be my favorite thing in this entire game. But then also the pedal aisles, they each of the islands has a different colored grass on it. Like you're going into the water area, and the water is blue, but then also the grass is blue, and it's like that. On face value, you're like, probably shouldn't do that, but the fact that they take that step out of your comfort zone and just make it a little bit of a twist makes it feel like, oh, they kind of thought about this in a slightly different way, rather than, okay, this is a sandy beach area on blue water. This is stripy blue grass on the water area.
And this is, I think you're perfectly explaining what I was saying before, of all of these decisions are made in service of evoking something within the player, opposed to just illustrating a sort of continuous, sensible landscape.
Sure.
And I think that really leaning into that decision to break away was quite smart. Because, to your point about the enemy variety, I think part of what makes these locations feel so distinct is that you are seldom in the water and it's just a bunch of cheeps around.
Yeah.
You're seldom...
Almost ever,
you're seldom in the plains and it's only Koopas. Now, of course, Koopas, Goombas, Paratroopas, everybody is back. but sometimes the Koopas are roller skating, or most of the time the Koopas are greatly outnumbered by any variety of peculiar new little guy.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time, and I think Kotaku published a story saying like Mario Wonder is like a reaffirmation that Nintendo's the king of creating funny little guys.
Oh god, yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
And
Pikmin 4, what a fucking combo. Jesus.
I feel like it's never been truer than here, and so when you enter a water level and you think you understand a water level, but then it's a bunch of raw birds in there with their little goggles and like funny classical cartoon light blue and white striped like swim gear on, and they're diving into the water and stealing your coins or things like that. You know, you're encountering mamas, you're encountering all of the hoppos are probably my favorite new enemy.
Those are great,
I would say.
Yeah.
They are all so interesting, not just because they look different, but because they act differently.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
a key thing.
Yes.
Like you play Mario World and you encounter Galoombas, and Galoombas act a little bit different from Goombas in that you can knock them over, you can pick them up, you can throw them around. But they're not especially unique. A lot of the enemies that have been added to Mario, Dry Bones and in Mario 3 and everything, largely sort of fit within the same types of design and then interaction as your very, very basic set of enemies.
Yes.
That's not at all the case here. And that's what I love. The hoppos, I believe they're called the blorgs, the big fish that get inflated you can hop on.
Sure, yeah.
The bulrushes, which I also love.
The mumsies.
The mumsies, they all ask you not only fundamentally interact with them differently, but they fundamentally influence level design.
Absolutely.
And that's another very key thing.
I think that is the really the reason why these enemies... By the way, I think that I've read somewhere online that there's like 70 new enemies in this game, which is up from the second most, which is 50 in Mario World, I believe. But again, with Mario World, something that you were just talking about, a lot of those enemies don't function that differently from something like a Koopa or a Goomba. Even when you're going through that first level in Mario World and you're jumping on the heads of those like tall purple dinosaurs, the only thing that's different about them is they take 2 hits to stop, as opposed to a Goomba, which is 1. But with this, with the enemies in this game, they are integrated into the level design in such a way where having that enemy in that level is the reason why that level is distinct and why you have to interact with the environment in a different way. I think of the bluebirds, which shoot out these straws. They breathe shoots out, and then it creates a straw that sticks out from the wall that stays around for a little bit, but then you have a new platform to jump on. Or even just simply, I don't even know what they're called, but there's like these mushroom guys that are really tall, that like walk in like series of 2 or 3, and you have to jump on top of them in a way that it's kind of like, this is a crazy pull, Alolan Executor in Smash Ultimate, how it's just like basically a wall that does nothing but force you to be a little more vertical in the way that you're going around the stage. And I'm just blown away. This is easily my favorite cast of Mario enemies, and I think the fact that they allowed each one to interact with the level in distinct ways and never be brought back too many times to feel where they are just another Goomba or just another Koopa. They always feel like they are distinct to the handful of areas that they're in, which makes them always feel fresh when you're encountering them.
Let's also just think of the bluebirds again for a minute, because I think that they are a beautiful indication of how...
Oh, I just thought of a couple more.
Yeah.
The Shelvas, which are these big Koopa-ish guys that wear like hockey gear, and they're pushing blocks and you have to push back against them. Those are great.
They're like charging chucks.
They are charging chucks, but they push. Yeah, they're pushing chucks. But I think maybe my favorite is the little kind of ninja looking guy that has these giant shoes that kicks things, and the name of that enemy, the Automoes. And I'm like, you fucking did it. Great name, great little design, great little guy. Also interacts in the level in a distinct way, and you're always having to dodge the things that's fucking kicking at you like a Koopa shell. And instead of you kicking the Koopa shell, it's them kicking the Koopa shell at you, which is really, really fun. It also is called Automoe. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Those are also great because it's sort of... I think it was our friend Tim in the Discord was saying how there's a lot of fun nostalgic nods in this game, and there definitely are. Like, there's a couple music theme stages that are just play motifs from old games. But I think a lot of the nostalgia is a little bit deeper and more integrated, actually largely in the way that Pikmin 4's nostalgia is.
Okay.
To where the more you love the series and the more you have muscle memory for it and an understanding of its mechanics, the more it's the way the game kind of teases you becomes further interesting. So the Out of My Way is a great example because I'm used to grabbing a shell, throwing a shell at an enemy, and then they're dead. But you kick the shell at the Out of My Way, they're gonna catch it with their foot and then kick it back. And it's just fun little like inversions of these very standard building block Mario interactions.
Absolutely.
That's
I mean,
really
there's
great.
even the ghost house doors are enemies now, and they like charge at you. They've got these giant mouths. There's all these fucking popcorn guys. Oh my god, I love that they have fucking popcorn enemies. They're kernels, and they touch lava or a fireball, and they turn into these popcorn guys. I'm like, that's funny. That's clever.
Yeah, and the reason I want to say on the bluebirds for a second is because we were talking before about how, sometimes a hoppy cat gets really big, and then the hoppy cat breaks the stage in the wonder or whatever, but the bluebirds has the iconic wonder where they, instead of shooting the straws, they shoot bubbles. And I just really love the line of logic that goes, okay, when you're a kid, what's fun to do with a straw? You put your straw in your glass of milk or whatever, and you blow bubbles. And so what if the birds, instead of shooting straws, blew bubbles, right? And what if... Okay, so now we have an idea. We have a guy. What if the guy shot platforms? So the straws are horizontal platforms. What's the link between a straw and the bubble? Okay, we know it. It's this fun kid-like action. Now what if, on a gameplay level, the bluebirds' platforms started going vertically instead of horizontally? You can really look at an enemy like that and see all of the very intuitive, but at the same time, incredibly complex decisions being made about how they're constructed, what they look like, what they do, how that impacts the level, how that impacts the player experience, and how it can all make sense. And to me, this is the greatest point of comparison between Wonder and Galaxy.
Sure.
A lot has been said, very rightfully so, about the way that when you play Galaxy, you're moving around the gaming axis of movement in a way that very few games ever attempt, but it makes perfect sense. As soon as you're in Good Day Galaxy and you're walking the other side of a planetoid, you get it. There is no moment in Mario Wonder where a wonder happens, you meet an enemy or something, and you don't understand what you're supposed to do intuitively. And that is where we come back to this notion of the benefit of an indefinite budget, indefinite development timeline, and everything. Because it's just a polishing to where we're talking about how these things that, even though we've been playing Mario games our entire lives, we've never seen before. We're talking about how we met these enemies, these obstacles for the first time and got them. That's incredible game design. It's incredible to say, here's an enemy that shoots two different types of platforms, that's contextual in the level around them, but we know as soon as the player enters the level, they're going to get it. So I think that definitely needs to be commended too, because you play plenty of platformers or playing games in general where a new mechanic is introduced for a one-off moment, and it doesn't feel right. It feels incongruous with the larger experience. You don't really understand how to interact with it. It becomes more of a hindrance.
And that's even happened in Mario games, specifically in Mario Sunshine, where they like to throw in these level gimmicks that don't actually work with the controls. And part of the reason why Mario Sunshine is the least even Mario game ever made is because it was the only one where they had a very fixed deadline. We just need to get this out the door. And it leads to parts of that game not being polished. And you're right that there's no single element of this game, no matter how disparate they are or the way that you're interacting with it, where you feel like, this part's less fun than the other parts. Like, I can't wait to replay this game except for this one part. And lots of games have that chunk where it's like, that could have used another pass or two to really figure out the physics or figure out how it ends up integrating with the rest of the game's design. But Mario Wonder doesn't have that, because even though it is a ton of like differently colored Legos making up a wall, they're all very solidly locked together.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and this is sort of a tangent you're going to take me down, but my one criticism of this game, and you just said it in a word on accident, but we're going this way now.
Okay, great.
The replay value for me of Mario Wonder, I feel like they missed a trick here.
Okay.
I wish that the game just let you record your times of levels and share them to a leaderboard. Yeah. That's my one thing, because
it wouldn't be particularly hard to implement.
Yeah, because ultimately, again, I'm not one of these people that's going to complain the game is too short. I don't think it is, especially when you wonder 100% everything. I'll be very curious to see what my play clock is. I guess tomorrow, probably, because I'm not one of these sickos who has parental controls on, so I have to wait for my Switch to tell me how long I played a game for. But I would imagine that I didn't play Mario Wonder for less than 20 hours, 15, 20 hours, just because I was also fucking around a lot, just because I love the game so much. But yeah, I feel satisfied in the length of it, but I do think that having the ability to just record my times would not only give me a reason to keep playing indefinitely against other people, but also because I think that the badge system, which we can talk about now, is a really, really great idea. And I think it works most of the time. But I don't feel like, the badges outside of their very particular challenges, as I was speculating about, they don't actually really let you get to new areas of the level for the most part.
Occasionally,
there's a couple purple coins you actually need the Dolphin Kick badge for, but that's one of the very few examples of that being true. What the badges are really great for, and there's plenty of clips of this online already, are people optimizing speedruns and everything. And so to me, the natural conclusion of the badges not being integral to finding secrets is opening up this sort of competitive gameplay, which is missing. And again, I don't want the level timer back, but I would like basically a level stopwatch. So I have a reason to take these badges, hone my play style, and use them to traverse the levels and compete against other people. Because I do feel like right now, until I want to do a full replay of Wonder, I am kind of done with the game.
Sure, yeah.
I think Luigi Balloon World in Odyssey, which is kind of a weird analogy to draw here, but that
apt. Yeah.
Luigi's Balloon World probably added 10, 15 hours to my play clock, because I just had such a great time experimenting in the context of the game. And I think that Wonder is equally ripe for experimentation this way.
No, definitely.
The badge system, but they just don't give you the tools to do that. And that's probably my only criticism of the game.
Well, it's an interesting point of comparison, actually, with Odyssey and Balloon World, because that is ostensibly the high score version of Mario Odyssey. You are trying to get to this thing in the least amount of time, but it's your knowledge of the physics, mechanics, and level design that allow you to get really, really, really creative with it. I mean, people are doing some crazy, crazy shit when they're placing their balloons and getting their balloons in that game. And the reason why Mario Odyssey, and then why I think the comparison is so apt with Mario Wonder, works so well to do that isn't just because you are trying to hone Mario's specific moveset and your knowledge of its controls and physics to get as fast as you can, but what works best for you in the variety of possible mechanics to get you to the end of the level at the fastest amount of time. You think about in Odyssey, the fact that people have different playstyles in terms of, okay, I'm going to go here and get this, capture this enemy that's allowed me to approach the level in a slightly different way, as opposed to someone else who can just use their chain dives together and hat throws. That is pretty similar with Mario Wonder in terms of how do you like to use the badges. And I think before the game came out, if you told me that the badges only 15% of the way played into the level design, I'd be like, that's pretty disappointing. But I think the expression ends up being the more important side of why they were included, and the fact that it feels so fresh and distinct for Mario to expand your moveset in this way, in a way that and customize your moveset in a way that Mario games, especially in 2D, had never attempted before. I wouldn't play a time challenge mode or a tracking your times mode, but absolutely it should have been included, because it does feel like there is that element missing, especially because they obviously know that racing in these levels and the player expression of the badges is something that people are interested in, because you can race people online. You can bump the race block and you can race them online, and so you can get to the end of the level first. It's like you're so close. Just expand that out in one way.
Question for you though: are races only with friends, or can you race with randoms?
I never tried it, but I know it's in the game.
Yeah, I think races are only with friends.
Okay, interesting.
which is a little disappointing because also, now I could be wrong about that. If you want to Google and fact check me, because I will say I didn't really play with the online that much. I turned it on just to see, and I'm like, I get the appeal of this, and this is very cool. This is not for me. It's not interesting to me.
Sure. But you want to elaborate on that though, because I find that to be interesting. I mean, I've never heard anyone else say that.
I just don't like seeing all the ghosts in the background. I don't want all the standees. I don't want people running around my levels. It's very personal. I think that it's a very good multiplayer mode. I got nothing against it. I just don't care. It's just not. If I can go online and say, hey, 3 other people, let's go race and level, that's great. Mm-hmm. But the idea of passively playing this fucking 95 ghosts of Elephant Daisy around my overworld is just it moves the needle for me none. It actually just distracts me. But
I'm not. People don't seem to be talking about this very much. I'm looking up some Mario Wonder level races, and
I think that they're friends only. Because I could have sworn I looked it up and there was a Reddit thread saying, "Yeah, why can't you race with randoms?" But we could also be wrong. Only.
How to host friend races? I think the fact that they're called friend races, pretty good.
Yeah, if it was fucking go race with Tom, Dick, and Harry online, then I would probably be more down for it. But that's probably the only place the game falters. And I would, if I could, either track my own times and beat my own times or race people online, I would not stop. I would not be 5 hours into Alan Wake right now if that was the case. I played a bunch after I got every flagpole, every purple coin, every wonder seed, every hidden level, everything. I've just been playing levels that I've already completed, re-getting the grayed out wonder seeds and purple coins just because I love it that much.
Yeah.
So if I could just have a little something, just a little something, just a little time trial mode, I'd be all about it. Now Balloon World wasn't there at launch. I don't think it's impossible that Wonder could get some kind of free DLC like this. But
Super Mario Party didn't have it online until 3 years later.
That's a really good
always
point.
Keep up hope.
That's
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe didn't get DLC till 5 years later.
And we're waiting on that Wave 6 any day now. But yeah, that truly is my only issue with the game.
Sure.
I wish I just had something, and it's a very selfish ask. I just don't want to stop playing Mario Wonder. Yeah. I'm probably just going to restart the game, frankly.
Well, it's not selfish, because you're selfishly allowing yourself to engage more with what Nintendo... you're doing what Nintendo wants at that point, just playing more of their video game and not playing other people's video games.
It's very possible that when I come to visit you next week, I'm just going to start another playthrough of Mario Wonder instead of playing Metal Gear or something.
Mm-hmm. Another element of this game that I think really, really lends it that sense of place that you were talking about before, but also really engages me on a design level, is the overworld map, which is completely overhauled from the way that the overworld maps were approached in previous games. It's the closest analog is like Mario Brothers U, which has this sort of interconnected overworld map where the different level themes kind of mesh together. But it's the more granular moment-to-moment changes of how they designed this overworld map that allow it to have a much grander feel. The fact that there are these areas where you can choose 4 or 5 different levels and approach them in any way you want. And you've got the little shop up there, and you can just kind of exist in this little area. But for me, what really pushes it above and beyond, and something that I've always felt was lacking out of overworld maps in previous Mario games, is secrets. This overworld map has so many different little secrets and little passageways that you can find, and it feels like the logical conclusion of having an overworld map, but they never really did that before. And it's something that I remember thinking when I was playing Mario 3D World, and I would jump around, and sometimes you'd be able to hit a coin block. Yeah. But that's really about it. Or maybe there'd be like a 1-up hidden down like a little thing. But they take that idea of hiding that 1-up down the little hidden path to its logical extreme, which is if there's a little bit of a gap between a wall and the environment in an overworld map, you can squeeze through that crack, go back there, and there's going to be a pop-on shop back there, or there's going to be a new level that's going to unlock this other thing, other path that's going to get you to the special world or whatever. And I really love the fact that the world map interacts with you in so many more ways that it makes it feel like a place that you actually are incentivized to explore, rather than existing ostensibly as a level select with an occasional coin or 1-up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because to me, I don't think... from my experience, I don't feel like the level of secrets on the actual overworld map is that much removed from like 3D world. Just in terms of you can still find some levels in the 3D world overworld, and you can choose your level freely in the 3D world.
Oh, that's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah, though that is a 3D Mario game, and freedom of level selection is much more common in 3D Mario.
Yeah, totally. Again, if we're thinking about Wonder as like an amalgamation of all of Mario,
it's like combining Mario U and Mario 3D World.
Yeah. I don't think that the overworld map felt especially fresh to me. I think that it is really cool that you can go across it so seamlessly, and unlike 3D World, there's a lot more like verticality and geography here, whereas a lot of 3D World's overworld is going between like maybe one or two planes. But I think the thing about it is that the majority of secret levels, you find them just by basically walking back and forth across the map until you bump into where they are hidden. Like in World 4, basically all the levels are hidden, with one exception I want to talk about, behind like a mirage. You just have to walk to the right area. Same with World 5, like the top area of World 5, you just have to walk to the right spot and you bump into it. I think you could have done some more interesting things with that, because there is one level in World 4 that you have to unlock by hitting 3 different question mark pads on the ground. Now that's very basic, but it's a little bit more interactivity. So I think the overworld map is super cool, but I also feel like a lot of it is kind of window dressing. Bump into some levels and you find them was cool. Some very, 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 very minimal puzzles to encounter the other levels. But I think that the secrets, if we want to think about secrets in a wider sense beyond overworld, I think that they're really, really good here. Now, Mario games have never been short on secrets. It's like the hallmark of 2D Mario. Even the new Super Mario Brothers games are full of them. But you think back to like the most iconic secrets. Like you think back to the NES era, obviously warp zones, warp whistles. A lot of it is very, very, very esoteric. Like, to get a warp whistle, okay, crouch on the left-hand side of this white platform in Mario 3, and you'll fall down behind the bush and walk in the background until you get to the warp whistle. The secret exits in this game make so much more sense. Now, there are still some I did have to look up just for my own sanity, but by and large, with the removal of the timer, with the different pace of this gameplay, you can really explore and find things. And that there's that more 3D Mario sense of exploration to the game. So I think, to me, that's where the game really thrives in its secrets. The number of exits, the number of finding one exit and it'll take you up a 5-course digression up to the super world opposed to your path over to the boss. I think that stuff is really good, but I think it is largely in the stages opposed to in the overworld.
Yeah, and I think it's the combination of the two that allows it to feel like the most exploratory 2D Mario that we've ever gotten. I'm certainly much more incentivized to explore and collect the purple coins as opposed to the star coins in previous Mario games, because there are those shops, which allows me a little bit more tangible sense of reward for actually exploring and getting all the purple 10 coins. But also, I think that for me, the idea of finding an extra level in this game means so much more than finding an extra level in one of the new Super Mario Bros. Games or even like Mario 3 or Mario World, because the levels feel so distinct. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I really want to hit home why this game works so much for me and is my favorite straight up 2D platformer of all time, because that level of variety that the wonder seeds or wonder flowers and the enemy variety allow for is completely disconnected from the disconnect that I had with other 2D platforms is the fact that the levels end up kind of running together. You're going to see the same enemies across the course of the game. It's going to be a different level gimmick occasionally, but the fact that each of these levels are designed around one specific level gimmick, whether it's a new enemy or a new type of element that you're interacting with in the level, always makes me curious as to see what's next, rather than I can probably guess what's going to be next. I'm never going to be able to guess what's going to be next. And so I'm interested in finding the secrets because it's going to be something I didn't see anywhere else. And that meant I was interested in filling out that list of levels and trying to find the secret exits. And that is also combined with the fact that the removal of the the timer and the score that comes with the timer means that I'm more incentivized to spend time soaking in the level and looking for the little cracks in the level design that are going to lead me to a different area, as opposed to the secrets in previous 2D Mario games, which were find an extra exit occasionally or mostly find the star coins. But because the level was timed and the level score incentivized you beating it faster, that always felt at odds with me to exploring the level and trying to find those secrets, because they're trying to incentivize you to explore because they're giving you rewards for exploring, but they also want you to go as quick through the level as you can because it's a timer and you've got a time pressure, so you can't hang back if you want to. That element those things always felt at odds with me. So simply removing that and allowing me to exist in the place and give me A, a more tangible sense of reward for collecting coins, but B, also a greater sense of variety in the levels, made this easily the most time that I've ever spent in a Mario game, and most time I've ever wanted to spend in a Mario game, because I never knew what was going to come next because there was always a sense of variety.
Yeah, I mean, the timer in general is interesting because the timer is never, unless you're playing Luigi U, where the timer is the premise.
Yeah.
There's really never been a risk of timing out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always just a strange component of the design.
Yeah.
And again, I think it speaks to, as you're saying, this real desire to critically analyze the 2D Mario formula.
Absolutely.
See what works, what doesn't, what we can take out, what we can replace. And I think that dovetails nicely with the other thing you're saying here of, you're right, when you take a different exit in the poison world in New Super Mario Bros. Game,
mm-hmm.
you're going to find a different poison world level.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case here in Wonder. The level, or sorry, the world themes are not so sort of strict, rigidly imposed on the level themes, and I think that's really great. And again, it goes back to my point from before about a total rejection of cohesion.
Yeah,
and a desire to sort of create a logic based on something different than visuals, and I think that's really cool, and you're totally right. When I've never felt motivated to 100% a New Super Mario Bros. Game.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I'm just gonna find another level that is akin to the levels I've already played.
Mm-hmm.
And more really well designed 2D Mario stages is always a good thing, but here. More really well-designed 2D Mario stages that are disparate from one another makes you feel as though you're missing a piece of the tapestry by not finding them. And
I want to talk about that level of variety a little bit, because I think another reason why this game stands heads and shoulders for me above other 2D Mario levels, or games with Mario levels, is that they aren't always just platforming levels. I think that we have these wiggler races, and we have these search party levels, and we have music levels, and we have like platforms disappearing behind you levels, and we have the one wonder that turns it into a quiz game. There is such a element to this game where they're like, it's okay if this one level isn't just get to the flagpole, if it is a little more puzzle based, if it is a little more community focused, if it is a little more race focused. The fact that they are allowing the flexibility for just existing in a 2D space with Mario's mechanics is the main goal, not just using platforming skills to get to the end of the level, allows it to feel a little bit more flexible, and it allows there to be a lot more variety of design and concept, as opposed to the difference is going to be a different enemy or a different level gimmick. It's going to be, this is not a 2D platforming level, and that's okay, and it fits in with this game.
I mean, that goes back to the 3D Mario influence pretty clearly. I mean, the badge challenge stages are really great.
Yeah,
they are.
I
think those are a lot of fun. The Wiggler races are too, but there's so few of them. I really wish that there had been more Wiggler races. I think there's only 3 or 4 in the whole game. Which is a bit of a bummer, because there's a couple. I actually don't know if there's more, how many KO stages there are, but those are really fun too.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's just like defeating enemies as the goal, which has basically never been the goal in a Mario level before, other than like the you bumped into a Hammer Bro on the map of Mario 3, and you gotta like defeat the couple Hammer Bros to get like a chest with a mushroom in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, the KO archetype, as you're saying, does go back to that game, and that is like the that is like the other type of mission, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look back at Mario 3, right, you have the fighting, usually Hammer Brothers missions, occasional like desert trap, golden sun situation, or
sure,
angry sun, or then obviously like the puzzle roulette stages with Toad, and it's clear that those concepts have been bulked out for Wonder in a way that they never really have been. We saw almost like a streamlining of those more in the New Super Mario Bros. Games, where it usually became just going to Toad's house and he's going to give you something. Here you still have a little bit of that with the poplins that you visit, with the very, very, very light narrative justification for why you're in each world.
Very, very light, yeah.
But you're taking like that Mario 3 spirit of these non-platforming challenges and imbuing them with the importance of the floodless missions of Sunshine, the capless missions of Odyssey, various things like that bore in on a particular skill, a particular muscle. Yeah. So I really, really did like this. I just wish there's plenty of badge stages, but more Wiggler races would have been great for sure.
Yeah, those are definitely very fun. One thing that I was just thinking about is when you're talking about the very, very simple narrative justification for the different worlds. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the story here is the narrative justification for this game is really no different from any other Mario game. There are two changes that I really like that do lend it a sense of distinctness within the small bubble that is what 2D Mario stories can be. And that is, number one, the fact that you are helping Prince Florian, and he had in the narrative justification for badges is that he wears them on his little head, and then he's in your hat like Cappy or like Ezlo or something like that. God, Nintendo loves putting little guys in hats or making little guys into hats or making little guys hats. They are hats. But I like that a lot. I think Prince Florian is cute and he's fun, and the Poplins are also great little designed guys that give you a break from just running into another fucking Toad. But I also really like the structural comparison to Breath of the Wild, which is that much like Calamity Ganon in Hyrule Castle, always looming over the game in the center of the map, Bowser, as the Wonder Bowser merged with Prince Florian's castle, is always sitting in the middle of the map here, in the overworld map. And so the structure isn't, okay, get to the end of the game because there's just levels in the way to get you to Bowser at the end. It's he's in the middle and impacting everything equally, and I really like the fact that the world map is just laid out in that slightly different way. The fact that the Petal Isles aren't an official world, but they are a full world's worth of levels with a relatively coherent level theme or world theme. And then you're branching out to these other areas of the Flower Kingdom. And even in the second half of the game, being able to approach those last three worlds in any order you want. I think the slight change in layout and flexibility of progression just gives it enough of that twist to feel solidly different from the progression of other 2D Mario games.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that point. I mean, to the point about the narrative, like, Prince Florian doesn't move the needle for me. The Poplins don't really do anything for me.
Oh, sure, okay.
Not that I don't like them,
I just like new little guys.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like them. It's just like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, ultimately they're just a kind of a different veneer. Now, I think that the Poplins are really funny, especially when you get the Elephant Mario power-up and you end a stage with water in your trunk, and then you shoot the water on the Poplins and their heads turn into flowers. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cute details like that. But ultimately, I do think you could try something a little bit different. Sure. Even like Odyssey showed that you can do a very simple, very, very simple rescue Princess Peach story, but put that through such a different lens that it doesn't feel the same. So I think you could have maybe done a little bit more on like a narrative level, but what you're saying about the structure, I think, is 100% true.
Yeah.
I really was surprised and excited at how they were subverting the traditional do a world, next world, do the world, next world. When you beat Rock Isle, something like that. I forget the name. Rock Plateau.
No,
Rock Plateau.
So Pipe Rock Plateau.
Pipe Rock Plateau. Thank you. You do that, and then you go to the Petal Isles, but then you go north. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, I didn't finish Petal Isles yet.
Yeah.
And then you come to realize, the Petal Isles is actually more of this big connective tissue between the worlds around it. So I think you're totally right. I think it's really smart. And for as much as I've been talking about sort of the abstraction of place in the game, there are a couple of really exciting levels when you're like south, like at the south part of the map and Bowser's above you, where you see the Wonder Bowser Castle in the background as you're playing through the stage. And that's really great too.
Yeah, they do a lot of really great work with backgrounds in these levels, much more so than previous games, because there is that relative sense of place with the distance of the other areas of the map behind you. Sometimes you'll see the mountains looming in the background, or the volcano, or whatever it is. And also just the fact that the backgrounds are a lot more varied and detailed than they have been in previous Mario games. I think my favorite detail in any of the backgrounds of any of these fucking stages is when you're in the pedal aisles and there are cliffs and clouds that are shaped like waves in the background. And they don't move. They don't do anything. But the water stage isn't just water going into the background. It's cliffs and clouds that are shaped like water. It's such a interesting little twist and a little detail that just makes it feel that much more funny.
There's a sort of like Kirby Dreamland, particularly as it's rendered in Star Allies and Return to Dreamland Deluxe, sense of like surreal geography in the background. These stages are really cool, and the way they just recede back into the background is amazing. But I think the real secret of this game that makes it look so good is there's also a lot of like close layered background also that casts a shadow from your character onto the background. And that's something there's really not that much of, and especially in the Super Mario Brothers games. And I think that varying the depth of the background and often having the background close to the character does a lot to sort of make them feel a little bit rounder, just because they're casting a shadow onto something. There's a little bit more sense of depth in there. So the art direction is very, very smart. I actually think, if you were to look at Tropical Freeze, which is a masterpiece, and Mario Wonder, which is a masterpiece, I think in some ways Mario Wonder's surreal but sort of internally logical art direction is more complicated than Tropical Freeze's.
Yeah, I would say so.
I think that it takes a real strong artistic direction to understand how to cultivate this sense of place when it doesn't traditionally exist. You're playing Donkey Kong Country and you're jumping on trees, and the trees are the platform, and you get it. That's very simple to make the player understand the sense of place of. It's a lot harder to do that in Mario Wonder, but they do it very, very effectively.
Yeah. The art direction, I think, is remarkable, but it really is the color palette and the just straight up graphical fidelity of this game that really, really sell it as that next level. I think the fact that all the colors are just slightly shifted from what we've seen in the other the New Soup games, which had the same color palette and art style for their entire run, gives it that fresh feel. It feels like they let there was New Super Mario Brothers, and then for Wonder they like laminate it. It's like his model's not that different, but it's got enough of a sheen to it. There's a rosiness to his cheeks. There's a slightly different shade of red and blue to his overalls. And of course with the animations, which it dovetails very nicely with, give it that polish that really makes it pop in a different way. And I really love the way that they use color design, as I was talking about some of the levels earlier, but the fact that the enemies are all so different and colorful, and the world themes aren't as realistic as the New Super Mario Bros. Games portrayed those different world themes. So when you're talking about the ice world in previous 2D Mario games, it's light blue and it's dark blue and it's white. But in here, the ice world is Fluff Puff Peaks, which is pinks and blues and cotton candy colors and crazy clouds, and then ice on top of that, and snow that is all sorts of different little colors. That extra level of color, I think, adds a totally new pop. It makes Mario feel alive and vibrant in a way that I think was intended in those previous games, but I was never able to gravitate towards because, again, to me, and like Tezuka-san and some of the other Mario developers were saying, some of that feels blasé now. It feels like the norm. And so just giving it that twist and that extra coat of paint with Wonder does wonders with Mario's art style.
there's also, and we mentioned this earlier, but as we're speaking about it, the other thing that really does help is the amount of extremely small detail that you can notice because you have no pressure and you can stop.
Oh, sure.
And admire it. My favorite is when a bulrush bonks his head.
Yeah, he just sits there and stunned for a bit. Yeah.
He makes this funny little face and there's a bunch of stars spinning around his head.
Yeah.
It is really great. Like, I have a bunch of screenshots of me just, like, watching the bulrush hit a pipe, and then he just, like, sits on his ass with his little hands in the air. He's like... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're not always just moving on to the next thing. You have the flexibility to sit there and look at the animations. And, I mean, the animes are amazingly animated. I think one of my favorite small details is that, like, the new version of thwomps that they have in this game are, like, these thwomps that are locked to the ground and they slide back and forth. They have spikes on their sides, but they're also babies. Why are they babies? Why do they have, like, why do they have a pacifier in their mouth and they go... It's like, why? You didn't need to do that. You could have just had to be an angry guy, but you made it a fucking baby, and it doesn't make any sense, but I love it.
Or I love when Mario gets hurt.
Yeah, sure.
When he gets electrocuted and he goes like for a second as he loses his power up, that's really great too. I mean, this was a headline that was going around of the dev team talking about how after the Mario Brothers movie, they knew that people wanted a higher standard of animation. Mm-hmm. Now, part of that's clearly marketing speak, because it's not like they're fucking animating the game...
in the last 6 months.
last 6 months, based on the popular response to the movie. But I'm sure there was no doubt that as they were seeing previs of the film, that they're like, oh shit,
Mario's more expressive.
Mario's kind of like bouncing and bobbling like a little man now, so he's got to do the same in our game.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great. And even just his stuff where... you see Mario sometimes a little bit more from a 3/4 angle more. Sure. When he jumps and he kicks his little foot out, his proportions are different. I still think that the smallest Mario looks a little weird. It looks like somebody hit him with a hammer.
Absolutely,
at the fair.
Yeah,
and he's just a little too squashed down.
So fucking weird.
But I think that Super Mario is the best that he's ever looked here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it is those small tweaks to the expected that makes this game, on the most granular level, feel different from what has come before. You can talk about the fact that we have badges or a slightly different structure or Wonder Flowers. Yeah. Okay, sure. Bleh. Who cares? But it's when getting the power-up animation is completely overhauled. Or the quotes that Mario is saying have been expanded. His vocabulary is immense in this game in comparison to the other
I will say I didn't think he needed to say all those slurs in the game, but...
or even the small tweaks of the coin picking up sound or the jumping sound just being slightly tweaked. They make this game feel like what you were talking about at the beginning. I think this is a good place to kind of bring this whole review close. Is looking at what Mario has been and saying where these things have been relatively static for so much of Mario's history, now with the new Super era lasting as long as it did, what elements of that can we reinvent? And it's not going to be the most crazy reinvention, but the fact that they went in there and gave Mario a new coin collecting sound and jump sound, as opposed to just reusing the same sound effect that they've reused for the last multiple decades, is an attention to detail and a willingness to go outside of their comfort zone and give Mario a fresh coat of paint that really lends this game an extra air of creativity. Because you can easily imagine a Wonder game that still uses those same sound effects and still kind of uses the same models of the Mario characters and everything, and mostly uses the same enemies, and even with just the addition of Wonder Flowers and maybe the badges on top of that would already be some of the most reinvention that Mario's gotten. But the fact that they took Mario at his like fucking atomic level, and they're like, okay, his jump animation can be different, his the coin sound can be different. Those are an attention to detail that really, really bring this package up a whole extra level.
Totally. I mean, this is almost a complete non sequitur. But what was your badge? What was your go-to badge? I'm just curious.
The one that makes you jump higher, I guess.
Sure.
But also like 4 of them do that in their own way. But I wasn't really a badge guy. I really did them when I realized that the level wanted me to. I would replay it and select the proper badge for that any given consequence. Or if I was losing in a level, I would be like, okay, it would be better for me to have the grappling hook here or the jump one that makes me jump higher. But I like the badge system, but I also didn't really use it that much.
Yeah, I'm actually you get that. I completely fucked up your way out of the video, but you actually remind me of something else I do want to talk about.
Who gives a shit? This is like Mario Wonder. We're just fucking going everywhere. Anywhere.
My badge that I always used, or didn't, my default badge was the spin jump that gives you a little added height.
Sure.
That's fucking dynamite. It's basically just like Galaxy Spin.
Yeah.
Essentially, but better because you get a pretty significant amount of propulsion out of it. So I use that pretty much all the time. Challenge, I think, is one last thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because the game is easy. I think the game is really easy. There is. If you're an average person playing Mario Brothers Wonder, there's gonna be
which you wouldn't be able to relate to, Abram.
No.
So don't even pretend.
Seriously below average.
Yeah.
There's one hard stage, and it is the special world stage for Pipe Rock Plateau, where you have to wall jump to the beat of the music.
Yeah.
That's really fucking hard at first. When you come back to it and you have better game sense and you have your favorite badge is very easy, but I think the game on the whole is easy, but I don't really care. I didn't expect it to be that challenging.
Sure.
But at the same time, what I also didn't expect is that the final challenge, it's called, final challenge, the badge marathon, is easily the hardest Mario level I've ever played ever. It is fucking impossible. I had to beat it with Yoshi. I have to say, I had to beat it with Yoshi.
Sure.
I had to beat it with Yoshi.
That's
now, even beating it with Yoshi really only makes one section easier.
Yeah.
There's one section where there's a bunch of fire bars, and if you play with Yoshi, you can basically cheese it.
Yeah.
However, even sometimes you get hit by a fire bar, still drops. It doesn't matter. It's even with Yoshi, it's really fucking hard. The rest of the game, I played basically only as Mario, just because I like Mario.
Yeah.
But then I had to switch to Yoshi.
You're the guy that people are memeing on, because people are like looking at that line. It's like, oh man, can't wait to play as Mario, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. I died on the final stage literally probably 60 times as
Jesus
Mario
Christ.
before I decided I gotta switch to Yoshi, and I still probably died another 30 or 40 times. I probably spent 3 hours alone in this
Holy
final level.
shit. Oh my god.
It's extremely difficult. And then the final, you're never gonna play it. So I'm just gonna, I know you don't care if I spoil the end of it for you.
I know there's an extra level, right?
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Because there's the semifinal, which is like a reprisal of the Piranha Plants, which is actually really fun. It's more fun than the original Piranha Plant song. And then there's a final level, which is like basically taking all of the various Wonder gimmicks and sticking them together in a gauntlet, which is actually not that hard. But the final one, which is all about badges, is fucking impossible. And the final part of the final mission uses the invisibility badge.
Oh, sure.
You get all the way to the end, and then you have to use the invisibility badge and gauge your positioning based on clouds you fall through to jump off of the blorgs as they're blowing up to land on the flagpole. It's a real motherfucker of a stage. Yeah. So I just want to say, from my perspective, as somebody who's played 2D Mario forever in a lot of 2D platforms, I think the game's quite easy. But that final stage, when you get there, I was saying some awful things about Mario, about myself, about Nintendo, about just the world. So I want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, speaking about the difficulty, I also thought it was reasonably easy. I'm not as cool as you, so I was probably dying a little more times. But
you're better than me at Mario 1. I'm not good at Mario 1.
Sure. Probably played it more than you have. But the one thing I do want to commend this game on is, even though it's not... This is actually something we're talking about with Pikmin 4. That game is also easy, and it's easier than some of its other counterparts, and I think that same applies to Mario Wonder, is especially with the badge system and the characters that you can choose to make things easier. This is probably one of the easiest, or at least most flexible Mario games. But I think the fact that it remains as thoughtful as it is throughout is something that we applied to Pikmin 4. This is the most thoughtful I've ever been playing a Mario game. I've never engaged with the level design or the exploration or the side content or the trying to explore to find extra side content as much as I have in this game, because even though the game is easy, that for me is a plus, but incentivizes me and gives me this sort of open headspace to want to engage with the game on a more granular level. And I know that's not how everyone approaches difficulty in games, but I find the moments of spectacle that Mario Wonder offers to be unmatched, especially in 2D platforming. Definitely. The amount of gimmicks, the amount of ideas, and all of that. I didn't play the Final Wonder level. I didn't play the Final Badge level. But I think that the Final Bowser level is really, really, really something special. I love that level. And I was sitting there and I was playing it. And it does a similar thing to, I assume, what that other Wonder thing is, where they combine all the things that you've experienced across the course of the game, and King Boo chasing you, and singing piranha plants, and bubbles, and transformations, and they're firing them at you one by one, and combining the level aesthetics and stuff, where it feels like a real celebratory culmination of look how many fucking ideas we had, and look how well, even as different as they are, look how well they can combine together. And the momentum is really nice. And then you get to the final Bowser boss, and it's a rhythm level, and he's singing, and he's doing this, and he's like punching to the beat. And it's like, what? It's easily my favorite ending to a Mario game, to a 2D Mario game. I think it's absolutely remarkable. It's not difficult, but unlike some of the not many of the final bosses in other Mario games, they're usually pretty easy, but they usually lack that spectacle and inventiveness and celebratory nature that I really, really think like hits this game home with a home run bat from Super Smash Bros.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, they Andross us at the end. Big floating head, two big hands, hit the hand, then you get to hit the head.
Or there's also bosses like that in Kirby. There's also a boss like that in Mario Odyssey. There's also bosses like that in fucking Zelda.
Yeah, it's one of Nintendo's favorite archetypes. They fucking love it. They love it. I agree with
Every big head with floating hands guys ranked. Tier list coming soon from Backlog Banter.
The final Bowser level is really, really good. I'll just say also, I really don't give a fuck that you just fight Bowser Jr. over and over again. I don't care. It's fine. I don't really have any...
disagree. And I don't disagree that it is because you're fighting Bowser Jr. Whatever. That's fine. But the fact that they used the most simple Wonder gimmicks on a simple Bowser Jr. fight is a real missed opportunity. The fights are not bad, but they are the closest that this game gets to reusing what has been done so many times before. The amount of fucking times that I've jumped over a spinning Koopaling and then bonked him on the head when he comes out of his shell is uncountable. And all of the Bowser Jr. fights are that again. Yeah. And the fact that he's not turning into Goo Bowser Jr. and shooting you with goo platforms that you have to like swim through, or the fact that he's not turning into Giant Bowser Jr. and destroying the level around you as you're trying to get away from him, there's just so much potential for boss fights, even if they are all Bowser Jr. The fact that they are just bonk him on the head when he's out of his shell, again, it's the lowest creativity aspect of the game without a single fucking flesh of a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I just think that ultimately, like, I mean, on one hand, I do think that, I think about, like, Wario Land 4 has really good bosses. And because there are more complicated ways to interact with enemies in this game, you could have come up with some really interesting bespoke bosses for each area. Even, having to pull the little handles on the mummy guys. That could be a mechanic in a boss fight. I think you're totally right. But I think that I'm also just unbothered in a game that is so varied. If I fight Bowser Jr. a couple times,
it's like a 5% issue. Because it's like 5% of the game. It's really not much in the grand scheme of things. And it doesn't hurt my thoughts on this game overall. But I think it is the most blatant criticism I have with this game. Sure. Because where the game is no missed opportunities anywhere else, the fact that the culminations of each world are mostly a missed opportunity, and even there's also some worlds that just don't have bosses, and you just like get the royal seed and you move on, which is fine, I guess. But the fact that there aren't really memorable, awesome wonder boss fights at the end of each world that test what you've learned from the rest of the levels is like, well, why? I mean, you had the time to iterate on this and come up with all these ideas, but you didn't apply those to boss fights? How did that like go unnoticed? It's just a confusing omission, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I also come from the perspective of thinking boss fights in games are usually silly.
Sure.
I'm just not a boss fight guy ever, so it's never really going to bother me that much. I think you are objectively right that there was more to be done there, but it didn't end up bothering me that much. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot, and it's your fault. So I feel like an hour and a half into the review, if there's something I've forgotten, it probably wasn't that important. I probably touched on basically everything. Here's what I'll say as we close out for real this time.
Okay.
The 100%.
I have another idea to talk about.
Just fucking
with you.
The 100%ing or quote unquote 100%ing, you beating the final stage gets you the final badge in the game, which is the different sounds badge. Mm-hmm. And now you were saying to me it's a dumb 100% reward. Mm-hmm. I actually think it's crazy that this is the reward for beating the game. Not because it's bad, but because they just said, what if the reward for beating the game is that the sound design of the entire game is different?
Sure, yeah. It's a lot of work to put into one thing.
Can you fucking imagine asking any other team, guys, for the fractional amount of people that beat your game, we want you to give them an ability that changes the sound design of the entire game.
Yeah, and most of them are going to be disappointed by it.
To me, the fact that they did that is just an encapsulation of why this is just a towering achievement in video games.
Yeah.
I had said to you that to me this is the most premium game I've played since Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that through the lens of fidelity, because you started immediately listing off of examples of games that are of a higher technical fidelity. And this is a very personal claim, because again, there's a lot of AAA stuff that I just end up not playing.
Yeah.
But I think that if you think about premium design and creativity and process, this is the sort of game that doesn't come around very often.
Yeah. I mean, the only teams that really put this much polish and ideation into their games are Nintendo, Naughty Dog, FromSoft. Maybe that's it. and the fact that we only get a game from each of those teams every couple of years, and especially with this 2D Mario team, never, it feels like, really makes this feel distinct. And it's a different kind of premiumness and a different kind of polish. And I think the fact that this game is selling as well as it is, especially in comparison to Sonic Superstars, is just fucking remarkable, and shows that there's still that hunger for that premium polish in something that isn't your Final Fantasy 16 or God of War.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that this is that we always talk about Nintendo through this lens of polish.
Yeah.
And their games, by and large, they all have it. But you play Mario Wonder, and then you just remember, same way as you play Pikmin 4, you play Tears of the Kingdom, you're like, when Nintendo is firing on all cylinders, call me a fanboy if you want. I have an Xbox Series X there and a PlayStation 5 there. I spent $1,000 to prove this isn't true.
Okay, fanboy.
There's nobody making games on this level, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
Mario Wonder is a fucking generational masterpiece.
God, yeah. It's a multi-generational masterpiece at this point, considering what 2D Mario's been for a while.
We both entered the 2D Mario space on a very different playing field.
Yeah, different sides of the pipe, if you will.
Different sides of the pipe.
But then we bonk in the middle, because the pipe only goes one way.
Yeah, we touch pipes in the middle, and that's where Super Mario, that's where Wonder happens. New Super Mario Bros. DS is the game that made me really a Nintendo fan. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is another game that's very important to me, and I think New Super Mario Bros. Wii has the best final Bowser, because Bowser fucking becomes Mongo Bowser, and he starts chasing you, and he's shooting fireballs and breaking platforms. That's a non sequitur. That's what I meant to say earlier. I just popped back in my head. But these games are very important to me, and I am of the class that believes that the New Super Mario Bros. Games are good. Actually, all four of them. Mm-hmm. But there is no doubt that this game reinvigorated my love for Mario in a way that I didn't think they would be able to. I've always loved Mario, but even Odyssey didn't present me with this level of joy. And I think that that's ultimately the major takeaway here. They took a series and a character and a world and a gameplay style that I absolutely love. Don't say it.
I was just looking at the box art.
And they distilled it all into this feeling of joy and presented it to me in a way that I never thought it'd be presented to me. They showed me, as is the case, they showed me things I didn't know I wanted, and now I couldn't possibly live without.
Yeah.
This, to me, is the crowning achievement of the Switch generation. And it is, and this may be a conversation for a whole other time, it is the affirmation I needed to call 2023, in my opinion, the best year Nintendo's ever had.
Yeah.
You're looking at Prime Remastered, you're looking at Tears of the Kingdom, you're looking at Pikmin 4, you're looking at this. More to come, more that I didn't name, F-Zero 99, some interesting games in between. You look at the movie, you look at the theme park.
Yeah.
You look at the sales results. I mean, Nintendo is dominant in a way right now that they had a chance of never being again.
Yeah.
For a period of time. It looked like maybe they were... maybe they were down into a little pocket. They were in. They had found the corner, but they just
a little 13 million unit size pocket.
But as Bowser did to Prince Florian's castle, they have come and they've enveloped the world
in cloud piranha plants.
And this is their mega wonder. Play this game.
One hell of a game.
Balan Studios is pretty bad, but for a different reason.
Yeah. It's like naming your... I mean, that's the equivalent of like naming your studio like 343 Industries, you know?
It is, in all of reality, it is weird that that's the name they chose.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not a bad team name unless you know that it's a reference to 343 Guilty Spark.
And also, it's like, if you had to name yourself anything from Halo, why do you choose Guilty Spark?
Yeah, who the fuck knows?
I don't know.
I'm going to be honest, Microsoft, maybe don't make a studio with a reference to the game as the studio name, because that makes them feel very limited. And also,
they have three of those? I think
it's the third one. I know there's Gears, there's Halo, and...
Turn 10. It's like a racing term.
Sure, but I think did Microsoft make that studio?
I thought so. I could be totally wrong about that because I'm not car man. San Diego.
What about Playground? Because cars like driving. I like driving my car through Playground while there's little kids there. Because that's my dream in Forza Horizon 6.